Hello and welcome to the Read to Know podcast, where the goal is to actually remember what you read so then you can better apply it to your life. On this podcast, we go through a book one chapter at a time, and then we actually practice remembering what we've read. So if you want to follow along, we're currently working our way through Bob Goff's book, Dream Big. I'm Zach Brown, and my friend Chris Yarber is joining me to help discuss and break down this book. Also, if you're on Apple Podcasts, it would be huge if you left a rating and review for us. It would help out a ton. If you're not on Apple Podcasts, no worries. Just send this to a friend who might be interested. Anyway, thanks again for listening and enjoy the conversation. All right, we are back with day number 5 here of Dream Big by Bob Goff. And we are on chapter 5, which is titled, Where Are You? And this, again, these questions are pretty straightforward. Who are you? Where are you? And, of course, this one has a little bit more of a twist, because where are you? He's not talking about geographically where you are, but asking the kind of deeper question of where are you personally,
right?
You know what I mean, or emotionally,
right?
Or just kind of in your head, you know. And he uses a great analogy here as to God in the garden with Adam and Eve. He asks them, "Where are you?" Obviously, God knew where Adam and Eve were in the garden. But he asked the question because he wants to know, where are you at in here? Where are you at in your heart, basically?
Right, yeah. State of mind, where are you?
Yes.
Of course not physically, because he knew physically where he is, and this is exactly how Bob Goff is talking here. Not physically where are you, you know where you are physically, but kind of biographically, you know, on the inside, as you said. Almost similar to, you know, chapter 4, where he talks about who you are, a little bit differently, though, because he says in this chapter, if you really want to fast track your ambitions, this is what you discover. You discover where you are.
Yes.
And then if you have ambitions, dreams, goals, however you want to say it, you align where you are with those things. And then that's how you fast track that and get to those dreams that maybe you thought you never caught up to.
Right, yeah. And this is kind of a 2-part question. And the who are you and where are you, it's kind of a 1-2 punch in a sense, because he says that these questions are very closely related to each other, and that getting to the bottom of where you are helps to figure out who you are, and kind of vice versa in that. But it's important to know, and he says being honest with yourself here, again, something that's a little bit tough to do on the surface, because it's something that I think can be uncomfortable, and we all naturally have the tendency to push back from discomfort.
Right.
So, you know, getting to the point again where you can ask yourself this question and really get down to the bottom of it is important and crucial. And like you said, it'll fast track you on where you want to be and how to get there quicker. You know, he also says that when asking yourself this question, when getting to the bottom of it, you know, he mentions God isn't worried about where you are, and he's not disappointed in you if you're not in that great a spot. You know what I mean? You don't have to, he makes the point here. You don't have to be like, man, I'm doing great all the time. Right. Awesome. You know, Bob Goff, I don't know if he's mentioned it in the book yet, but I've seen him in other videos and interviews. He's an Enneagram 7. So if you know, again, anything about the Enneagram, that he is all-time energy high. He is positive. He is full of energy, you know, all the time, most of the time. And, you know, he says it's something that, you know, it's okay. Like even for him, it's okay that he doesn't have to be at 100% energy level, at 100% positivity every single moment of every single day, because that's just not natural, and that's just not how life works, you know. But we have to learn to be honest with ourselves when we're not in that position, when we're not in a good spot mentally, when we're not in a good spot emotionally,
right?
And just to be honest with ourselves and honest with God about that.
Yeah, and he even gives the advice in the book to, I love how he said this. He said, take someone to Starbucks, make them pay, and sit down with them and just talk it out with someone. This is not something that, like in the Who Are You chapter, where you kind of do self-reflection and it's on your own. This is something you can engage in relationship with, and you can sit down and you can ask someone, hey, can I just kind of tell you where I'm at and kind of what my ambitions are, and let's try to kind of figure this out together. So this is something that can be done in relationships and explored in relationship.
Right.
You don't have to do this alone.
Right, and this is where that relationships chapter, the first chapter of this book, can come into play. You sit down with someone, and even if it's something like, man, I am frustrated because I am not where I want to be in life.
Right.
I just gotta tell someone, man, this is frustrating, or I'm frustrated in this situation, or this is not going how I want it to be, or I'm not where I am. I'm not where I want to be in this situation or in that thing. And oftentimes, because people oftentimes, whether indirectly or directly, share a lot of the same experiences and a lot of the same feelings, that person can probably relate in some way, and
Right.
And be able to either give guidance or even just compassion and just understanding, which is so huge, especially when dealing with, I think, negative emotions and negative feelings.
Right. Yeah, that's good. I'm ready to jump in the book. I have a quote in my head if you're ready to get into the chapter concerning the relationships that you just spoke of. But just to start kind of from the beginning, what you mentioned, he said, instead of thinking geography, I want you to think biography. Figuring out where you really are is a big part of discovering who you really are right now. So that goes right in line with what you said towards the beginning, where this is a 1-2 punch. That discovering where you are, figuring that is a big part of who you really are right now.
Right.
And some good reflection questions that he kind of gives you as you try to figure out where you are questions like, are you in a job that's sucking you dry? Are you in a toxic relationship? Is your mind being blown by how blessed you are with your spouse and your family, your community? Are you fuming over a wrong you've done in relationships that's gone wonky? So just kind of some of those reflection questions he gives.
I think it's worth pointing out too that these, asking yourself where you are, it can be a positive thing, even though we're mostly talking about negative situations or negative feelings or emotions right now, because that's what's most uncomfortable to address, right?
Right.
We're always comfortable talking about if we're feeling good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But how often does someone ask you, how are you? And when you're not feeling good, you say, I'm good. You know what I mean?
Right.
Never when you're feeling good do you get asked that question and you say, "No, I'm not good."
No, I'm not good. No. You always lie.
It's never the other way around
Right.
with that question, because we naturally we push away from bringing up negative feelings or emotions, really.
Right.
And but it can be a positive thing too if you ask yourself where you're at, and you can honestly be like, I'm in a good spot right now. I'm really enjoying this. Is going well. This is going well. And it can be a positive answer to this question as well. I think it's worth noting, but obviously the ones that are that may be negative are the most uncomfortable to address.
Right. Yeah, and certainly to bring up to someone that if you're starting off the conversation, and that's where it takes courage. And he even says in here, not to skip ahead too much, but he even says in here to be courageous. Right. So it does take courage.
But the encouragement here is that if you want to fast track your ambitions, like you said before, I'm going to repeat it again because it's so huge. Get real about where you are right now. That's how you fast track your ambitions. And he continues here, and he says again, don't feel like you're disappointing God by being honest about how you feel. Yeah, because he's not disappointed.
Right.
And again, he was talking about when God was talking to Adam and Eve in the Bible, he was talking about their state of mind. He wanted to know whether they knew where they were. Mm-hmm. They were tucked behind a bush, yes, but they were really in a place called shame. And he said, don't get punked by your past. It'll lie, distract, and try to get your attention, and then laugh at you for looking.
Yeah, right.
And then he says, shame has one goal and one goal alone, to keep you cemented in a dark past while it hides a beautiful future from you.
Right.
And I even was listening to a podcast today with Jordan Peterson that actually he mentioned something that kind of tied very closely into this. And also, kind of a side note here, if those of you listening, if you don't know, Jordan Peterson was actually the person who kind of inspired this podcast for me, kind of gave me this idea for this podcast, talking about remembering what you read. But anyway, that's just kind of a fun little side note, that shout out to Jordan Peterson for inspiring
Thank
this podcast. But anyway, I was listening to Jordan Peterson, and he was saying that if you're under 70 or 80 years old, you shouldn't be worried about your past. You know what I mean? Like if you're, especially if you're 20, 30 or 40, even 50, if you're looking backwards more than you're looking forwards and or at your present moment, what's going on there, if you're too busy looking backwards more than forward, then you're looking in the wrong direction, because there's so much ahead, there's so much in store moving forward, then it's not even worth looking, because the past is just the past. It's done. It's it's a memory.
Right.
But you can create something that's better than that.
Right. Yeah, and it starts with being honest though, and figuring out where you are now, not having shame and not beating up yourself where you are, because a lot of us are not where we would like to be. But that journey starts. The starting line really is discovering where you're at now, so you can be where you want to be.
He also continues here, don't let this kind of honesty discourage you. It's okay to be somewhere and wish you were in a different spot. And he sums it up here. The key really to this whole chapter is it's not where you're planning to be tomorrow. And that's the key takeaway here, is that getting real about where you are is okay, because figuring that out now lets you start making a plan to not be there tomorrow.
Right.
And that's the takeaway here from this. Figure out where you are, so then you can plan on not being there tomorrow.
That's right.
I think that's a pretty good place to stop it right there.
I think so, because then it leads us naturally into the next chapter,
which
chapter
is
6.
What do you want? So chapter 6, what do you want? The last question in this triad of questions. Who are you? Where are you? What do you want? That'll be tomorrow. Thanks again, guys, for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.